In this video, we're going to talk about managing bleed in a recording. So bleed is when one mic that's on an instrument will pick up sound from the other instruments in the room. It's totally normal, happens all the time. Here's an example in this hi-hat track. I have it soloed, but you're going to hear things besides just the hi-hat in that mic. You hear drums, you hear the other cymbals, and that makes sense because the mics are sensitive and they're all there together on the drum set and they're recording everything. So they do pick up their instrument primarily, but they're going to pick up other instruments too. Even if you place your mics perfectly, there's no way to reject all of the sound all the time. The thing about bleed is it's not really that big of a deal, especially like in a drum set like this. The bleed actually will help glue that drum set together. In modern pop productions, it's quite common to replace all the recorded drum hits with samples. Some bands use MIDI triggers where they have these devices attached to the drum heads, and every time that drum is hit, it generates a MIDI note that triggers a sample. That's all common, but in an acoustic recording like this, where we are going to keep these drums, bleed is not really a huge problem. If there's too much, it can get in the way. But in the hi-hat track, if we were to try to remove everything that's not a hi-hat, it would sound pretty terrible right away. On the other hand, we have these tom tracks, and the toms are really not played that much. They're compared to the other drums. They're only hit once in a while. You can clearly see which hits are the tom hits and which are not, right? Because of these huge spikes in the waveform. Now, here is a good spot where we could get rid of some unnecessary bleed, clear up the drum set a little bit, and make it easier to process with EQ and compression. So let's look at one way to do this. I could go through here and I could isolate each hit, right? And then I could mute or delete the other material in between. I could do that, right? And let's hear what that sounds like. Oh, let's unsolo that. There we go. And you're like, well, that sounds kind of weird because it's going in and out. When you put it back with the full kit and you have the overheads and everything playing, you don't notice it being chopped out. However, this is very time consuming. You could probably do this track. This is a short track and it's only 3 toms and the hits are pretty obvious, but there is another way. So I'm going to undo these changes. And in Pro Tools, we have a plugin called Strip Silence. It's under the Edit menu. It's also the shortcut is Command U. And when you bring it up, it looks like this. And let's look at the parameters here. So you have 4 sliders. And I like to start with the first one all the way up at 0 and the other 3 all the way down at 0. So the first slider is your strip threshold. This is basically saying, all right, what is a hit that you want to keep? What's a note? What's something that is not going to be stripped out? So if I carefully move this down, you'll see eventually these black lines popping up. And it's saying, okay, all of these hits are negative 13 decibels or above. And what I'm going to do is I'm trying to wait till I get to this hit because this is clearly a tom hit, right? It's not very loud, but it is one. Notice how the black lines went away. I just need to reselect the audio to get them back. And there we go. And I'm going to scroll through here and see if I missed any. This is not a perfect plugin, and it's still going to take some work after the fact, but it looks like we've got all the tom hits. Maybe not that one. Let's see what that is. So that is one. It's just very quiet. So maybe I'll drop it down a little more and see. There we go. And then I'm going to zoom in here just to look at a tom. Minimum strip duration. So this is like, how long does it have to be before it's considered like 1 unit. And so 141 milliseconds, you can see it kind of cleared that up there. Is this a tom hit? So you can hear that is actually a snare hit. So it's going to strip that out. That's good. Clip start pad and end pad. A pad is like some space on either side of the note in case you don't want to chop off the transient. I'm going to set that to 17 milliseconds. And the end pad, you can go long or a little ways, but I'm going to leave that at 0 for now. And I'm just going to scroll through here and look at some other hits. Okay, right here, this is a false positive. It thinks that this is a tom hit, or it thinks it's exceeding the threshold. It doesn't know that it's a tom hit, but it's not. So we'll take care of that later, not even worried about it. Here, so right here is some not tom. Okay. And so we could have more end pad there, but we can fix that another way. We're just going to take a look. Maybe I will increase that end pad a little bit. It seems like. There we go. The average tom length here. All right. Let's suppose that is accurate. I'm just going to hit strip. And what it did is it got rid of everything else that wasn't that tom hit. And it had some false positives, like we said. That's not a false positive. That is a tom hit. If I bring that out, there we go. All right. If we're not sure, let's go down here where it's a little bit thicker. So let's take a listen to this. So that's not tom's. So we can just delete it. That's also not tom, so we can just delete it. At least it's not that tom. So again, this is not a perfect tool. Even if you use it correctly, you're still going to have to do some editing. But it will be worth it in the end because your drum tracks will be clearer. There we go. And we're not going to be able to cut all the bleed out of that. That's like a complicated clip. All right. So I'm not going to go through this entire track. That would be very dull for the video. But one thing I will say is that you don't want to just leave these cut. Okay, you want to add little fades at the beginning and end of each one of these. There's a very easy way to do that. With my selector tool, I'm going to triple click 1, 2, 3. And that selects every clip in the track. And then I'm going to press Command F here. And that will bring up the batch fades dialog box. And this is going to just create fades. We're going to go over batch fades later. I'm just going to leave these at the default settings for now. 10 millisecond length. Fade. It's going to create new fade ins and fade outs on every clip. Boom. And now if there was an audible click or pop as a result of the audio being cut, it's gone. And we can do that with the other toms as well. I'm not going to do it in the video, but in the next video you'll see that they have been cut. But this is what you should try. Strip silence. You set the strip threshold, the minimum duration, start pad, end pad, and just play around with the settings. After you use this tool a few times, it's not that big of a deal. You get used to it pretty quickly.